Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk with Parul. The institution of marriage in India is still very sacred. In many extremes, of course, it is considered the end-all and the be-all of a woman's existence and the ultimate goal of her life. So in this sacred structure, if there are irreparable cracks, what happens? Normally the conversation is just hushed up and the big bad D word is considered taboo. Well, this is a place where we bring up hushed up conversations like divorce, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. Divorce, with all its complications, with its social nuances, with its multi-level legal perspectives, is certainly a conversation that needs to happen. One of the biggest, or let's say the most dangerous things that happens with conversations that are hushed up is that women do not know what their rights are, do not know if they're even protected by anything at all, especially if they're in a violent or an abusive marriage. It is this information gap that we are attempting to close today. And for that, I have with me Advocate Rashmi Chopra.
Hello.
Rashmi, welcome to Let's Talk with Parul.
Thank you, Parul.
Let me just tell you a little bit about Rashmi. She's been a crusader for women empowerment, both socially and economically, and has worked extensively for gender equality. She is an advocate practicing in the Delhi High Court for over 25 years now. She's ardently worked on a number of cases which pertain to divorce, alimony, and child custody, while simultaneously upholding the sanctity of the institution of marriage. I think this is a good time to clarify that yes, at Momspresso also we do uphold the sanctity of marriage. And though this discussion is about divorce, I think it's safe to say, and it's important to say, that we believe that both divorce and marriage should not be taken lightly.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So today we are not going to be talking about choices. We're not going to be talking about whether to stay or to leave, the social consequences of divorce, or even the single parenting after divorce or anything. Those are all important topics which need conversations of their own. Today we're going to be restricting ourselves to knowing the law and to understanding our rights.
That's right.
So Rashmi, if we would, the first time when we spoke, you said that the same line that you said, the law in India upholds the institution of marriage. So I think that's a good point to start very broadly. What does that mean?
So, Parul, in every act which is there, which let's say in the Hindu Marriage Act or the Special Marriage Act, there are specific sections which mandatorily provide that any petition which has been filed in any court, the court, on being satisfied, must refer the matter or amicably try to resolve the situation, where they amicably mediate between the parties if the marriage can be saved, so as to say, in the literal words, because we as a society believe in institution of marriage, and they would like to see whether it is only not on a whim or a spur of a moment, or maybe just out of an anger that we don't want to live, because all of us have been married for so many years. We go through situations where we feel that we should not, yeah, bas bahut ho gaya, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So specifically I feel this whole thing about the fact that the institution of marriage must be saved. Of course, this is subject to the fact that I don't think, again, simultaneously, I don't think so that a marriage should be saved at your own cost, or abuse should be taken lightly.
To life.
That's right, exactly. But this thin line to decide, and for somebody to intervene, and for you to realize that maybe you have been the one who has been wrong, and this works for both parties. See, the courts specifically have a mechanism which is there in place which tries to save the institution of marriage, and I totally endorse it.
Right. So in fact, now before we move forward, let me ask all of you to put in your comments, share your experiences about the legal aspects of divorce if you have any, and also ask questions about the same topic. So we'll be making sure we keep track of your comments and we bring your questions up. Rashmi, now my first question is really a comment. So we had, as soon as we put up promos for this particular show, we had a comment from Kiranjit Chaturvedi who questioned, she was asking about whether legal provisions around marriage and its dissolution are quite loaded against women. Is that a perception? Is that reality? Does that work in different cases?
Parul, after being there in the profession for about 25 years, I think it is a perception. Perhaps, perhaps a non-litigant or perhaps a non-lawyer would say that no, it's not a perception, but I think it is a perception because in the Act, the legislature has provided some specific sections by which only women can use those grounds for divorce. So I don't think so that in India we have a very pro man society with regard to divorce is concerned. I think it is a perception which we carry on because that is the way we've been kind of living it since the past few years, or that is the kind of apprehension or atmosphere which has been created around us.
Sure.
And we start believing in that because of lack of awareness, because of lack of knowledge. So we only have to have that awareness and knowledge to realize that no, it's not as difficult as everybody's trying to make it sound.
Right.
It's as simple as it. Of course, in a marriage breaking, there is a lot which is involved. Just besides the legalities, it's emotions, especially for women, because I feel that women give in so much more to a marriage. I mean, I hope the men are not going to get after me for that statement.
No, but it's a true statement.
Yeah, I mean, so there is so much which is there, which is given. So of course it is there, but it's not entirely true that we have laws. We have laws, in fact, there is Section 13(2) of the Hindu Marriage Act, which provides for a specific 3 or 4 grounds which only a woman can avail. With regard to the place of filing, where a woman resides can be her place of choice of filing, despite the fact that the spouse or the husband, so as to say, is not residing in the same town and he has to come.
So it's an advantage for her then.
Yeah, that's right, because perhaps the legislature is also aware of the fact that, she may be working or residing at one place and the husband may be somewhere else and she may have children, and to come to court on every date of hearing must be quite a financial burden to her. So the legislature does step in all these circumstances to provide it to be a little more easier for women.
Right. One of the most important things, the obstacles that women face is finances, of course.
Yeah,
that's probably one of the biggest points of hesitation as well, because obviously they realize, especially if the husband has been the primary breadwinner in the family, that they may not be able to give their children the same kind of lifestyle, may not be able to support their education, and that's one of the fears because of which they don't even step towards, starting the divorce proceedings. How does the law protect them in those cases, in terms of alimony or child support or just general maintenance?
But that is so true because, Parul, this gender equality and economic empowerment as a society which we are working towards is still a far way to go. Giving an equal opportunity to women or encouraging them. I mean, today I will not say that they are the weaker sections of the society, but that has been the perception.
Right.
And economic empowerment is most necessary, which I know, with regard to a marriage. Well, there are specific sections which provide for maintenance, while the pendency of the divorce is there, which provides for even the legal expenses to be paid by the spouse when the matter is in court. There is alimony which has to be given. Now, the only thing is that the alimony or the maintenance, so as to say, has to be decided on various factors which the court has to satisfy with regard to the income of the spouse, your income, your capacity and capability to look after yourself and the children, or the husband's capacity and capability, and then to arrive at an equitable amount which will satisfy or which will look after your reasonable needs.
Okay. So you can't expect the same lifestyle or the same kind of whatever levels that you've been used to, but the court will take everything into consideration and come up with
so is it normally in genuine matters? I would say that you perhaps could also expect the same lifestyle. You could in cases, but you have to understand that after you, the husband also has to live on his own.
Right.
So the court will come at a satisfaction which will be equitable
for both parties.
And of course, there is always a rider, whether you are working, you are capable of looking after yourself. All these things weigh in the court's mind to decide what will be your alimony or maintenance.
Right. So this needn't be the first point of fear for women, because there is a way out. There is at least some scope of getting that kind of support from the court.
Oh, definitely. And I do feel that there's no fear at all.
There is no fear there.
There is no fear at all. It is only my mind which is full of
Right.
fear. It is only as we go, we'll realize that there should not be. Of course, things are going to be a little
They will be
different.
tough. Of course, they will
They
be
will be
tough.
different.
Yes.
No, I wouldn't even say tough. Tough is
Right.
also a perception.
Well,
They
yeah.
are going to be different.
Sure.
Okay? But in every relationship and in every situation, when you break free from something which you're used to,
Used
or
to.
you've been living, or it's a pattern, then of course it's going to be different. But there is no fear.
Right. Right. There are a lot of things where you can be taken care of
Of
quite
course.
comfortably. We're already getting a lot of comments, and Mampi Ghosh, she's one of our very, very active participants in the Momspresso support groups. We have a separate support group which takes care of the topic of divorce and single
Oh.
parenting. And we have a lot of questions which come in anonymously there. We will be taking up some of those during the course of this show also. Mampi says, I'm a single mom, have gone through mutual divorce, had a topsy-turvy marriage, but willingly did not demand anything from him since he himself was unemployed at that time. So I do remember Mampi, talking about this. And she also mentioned that the term of settlement wasn't very long. The duration
Yeah.
of the divorce settlement wasn't very long because she refused any kind of, alimony or child support or anything, because she also knew that, he would not be able to do it. And that kind of, made the proceedings go much faster. Thanks, Mampi. Thanks for sharing
So
your.
can I just add,
Yes, please.
Mumpy is one of the cases where I feel there's no fear.
There is no fear.
There
Yes,
is no
yes.
fear.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. So Mampi also says he's not taken any responsibility and I have complete custody of my son without any commitment from his end.
Okay.
So that is one of the reasons why
So I
I'm
think that's very brave of her
very
also.
brave of her.
Yeah,
So,
very brave of her
to just
also.
let go and say that
Yeah,
fine, let's just cut off ties
that's right.
completely.
And I'm sure it must have been different.
Of
Not,
course,
yeah,
of
must have
course.
been different and difficult, but
For sure,
that's
of
it.
course. I think, yeah, exactly. Nobody's circumstances are the same.
That's
And nobody's circumstances could possibly be easy because, you're going through some kind of, like you said, it's not just the legal aspects, it's a lot of emotional
Yeah,
trauma.
that's right.
It's a lot of relationships that you
Yeah.
need to balance.
Yeah.
Um, Amrita, your question about what's the exact situation where a woman should seriously think of divorce, we'll probably need 10 of these shows to get into that. But I think we answered some points in the last episode on domestic violence, where our guests mentioned that, when it comes to losing yourself, so the sense of self and to lose your own self dignity, that is probably one small little occasion that may want you to start thinking. But like I said, there are too many layers here. It's a very, very complicated and a loaded question, and I don't think we can answer that completely in one session. We are getting to another experience, another shared story. We have Sheetal Manchuramani. She's shared her story with us, and we have a video for that. So we'll just play that for you. And again, her story is about divorce, about marriage
Okay.
and divorce. So we'll just get into those details.
I'm Sheetal and I'm going to share my journey with you today. I was 23 years old when I fell in love with this gentleman who used to frequent my office. And I was so blinded in love that I didn't even take his proper whereabouts. Each time I asked him where he lived, he would evade the question, and I never ever thought that there could be something fishy. One day he proposed to me, and I was so blinded that I went ahead and took the proposal to my parents. And my parents did not agree because they had done a ref check and they realized that we were of different socio-economic backgrounds. I did not listen to my parents. I eloped and I got married. That's when my nightmare began. They made me sign certain papers that would get my parents into trouble if they went to the cops making a complaint that I had eloped. That was not it. Right after the marriage, my parents had accepted him as well as the entire marriage. They started making demands. And to top it all, he used to be abusive, behave badly, and sometimes even get physical in public. It took me 10 years to take the courage and proceed for divorce. It wasn't easy. He filed a custody asking for his children, two daughters of ours. When I went ahead and put the petition, he knew that the cat would be out of the bag, and then he agreed to mutual consent. But the saga was not over there. He was not wanting to give maintenance for his own children. But the judge was kind enough and the law was by my side, and I managed to get a decent maintenance for my children. Today, I'm a much happier and a much stronger woman. I want to appeal to all women out there. Please use your wisdom when getting into a marriage. And please, if the relationship is not serving you any purpose, if you're not being respected, have the courage to walk out of it. Thanks and take care.
Support from him. He has visitation rights currently and only in a public place. And that situation is something she says is just brought upon entirely. So now this is Sheetal's story. And like she was saying, there are many lessons to be learned from here. So I think the first thing that she herself has said is that be aware, keep your eyes open, know what you're going into. And especially this thing of signing papers. Do you come across that women are not even aware of what they're signing, what their, paperwork, legalities and things like that?
All the time.
All the time?
All the time. And in fact, so
And
so
this is
independent,
not just uneducated women.
exactly, and independent of matrimonial matters with regard to divorce or separation or any kind of an affidavit or a contract which may be signed, which I don't think so should have been, and they are not sustainable at all in law, because they could be because of lack of knowledge and out of force or coercion, and they are not sustainable. I see it across the board. I see educated women just signing on the dotted lines
Right.
wherever they are asked by their husbands, because it's either some resolution of a company or it's something which is told that you are just you are a sleeping director and you just
Yeah.
need to sign, and I see it happening all the time.
So they're signing away a lot of things.
Yeah, that is right. So we need to be aware. Again, it all comes from awareness, knowledge. So it is most essential to see what you're doing and take a call at that stage. Now you may be trusting, and you should also, because after all, marriage is all about trust.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you need to sign off something which you think it does not agree with you. It's all about holding on to yourself and saying that no, I don't think so, I want to sign this.
Right. And asking?
And asking,
questions?
definitely,
I mean, that's
definitely, yeah.
certainly not something which you should just do blindly. You need
Yeah.
to ask, what is it that I'm signing? What does this mean?
Yeah.
And there's no harm in that.
And I don't even blame women, because here it's all trust. You're
Absolutely.
trusting and you're
Right.
agreeing. But we just learn, we learn from experiences, we learn from Sheetal's experience
Right.
that we must know what we are doing. We must be aware.
Right.
We must see, read before we sign on the dotted lines.
And I think Sheetal, as well as Mumpy has also written about parental support,
Oh,
that
yes,
there
of
is
course.
tremendous parental support that they have. A lot of people don't even have that.
Yeah, that's
they
right,
are,
yeah.
they're almost entirely on their own.
Yeah.
So for them, it's even tougher to take these steps. But I guess that the whole thing of it starts with awareness.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We have a question from Subarna. She's asking, does the duration of marriage have a role to play in deciding alimony?
No,
Since
no,
we were talking.
no.
No, it doesn't.
No, it
So it's basically capacity,
Yeah.
earning capacity, expenses.
Yeah, the reasonable claim you make, the expenses,
reasonable
the
claim.
status of the parties in society, the capacity of the spouse whom you're asking alimony from, the lifestyle, the
Right.
properties, the ownerships of the properties, and various other factors, which all cumulatively add up to decide the amount of alimony. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a chart which says, okay, so income is
Yeah,
this much,
right.
so alimony must be this
Right.
much. It is on the discretion of the court, which court weighs down it, but all these factors which are there,
They weigh in.
they weigh in the mind of the court to decide.
Gurpreet, we'll just come to your question. I wanted to take up the question of child support first.
Yeah, that's right.
Because women are often threatened that their children will be taken away from them. That's another reason why they don't even want to take that step towards what would be seen as losing their children, because obviously that's how they've been threatened and brainwashed. Could that actually happen? In what circumstances would a mother? We know that mostly the courts are a little more
Inclined towards mothers. So in case
mothers.
of minors and courts are generally inclined towards mothers, and rightfully so. And in fact, let me tell you, until and unless I think the husband makes it into an ego issue, he really actually wants the mom only to look
take care.
after. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. So I wouldn't really say that. So
Yeah.
the general thing is there until and unless, there are circumstances. In fact, recently the Supreme Court has held that the what weighs in the mind to give child custody is only actually the welfare of the child. In one of the recent matters, in fact, which I was reading the other day, so they said that they preferred, or in fact, they called the child Supreme Court and they spoke to the child, and there was. There was this one proposal of sending the child to the hostel, and after weighing the situation and after speaking to the child, they said that the welfare of the child would be to send him to the hostel.
Right.
So, what is most important and paramount is to see where is the welfare of the child. But generally, yes, of course, mothers do get priority for minor children.
One of the things that women are scared of is strong arm tactics. They feel that, they will be coerced, even the legal, the representation will be coerced into deciding in favor of the father, and they're always brainwashed to keep quiet about these things. So that is, again, it's one of those perceptions, I think, which probably is not true.
Yeah, I agree. And Parul, there may be situations where this may be happening, and this kind of perception may have come from maybe somebody's experience, and then women kind of hold it in their mind, or so. So again, we come back to the fact awareness,
of course,
knowledge, awareness. You need to know that no, that's not true. You need to hold on to things, and it's not that your child will be taken away from you.
Yes. That's
will not
a
be taken away.
That,
yeah, absolutely not. Right. Your child will not be taken away from you. So courts are always, in fact, inclined for the fact that the child should be with the mother. It's only in extreme circumstances where they perhaps feel that the mother would not be able to take, and it is in the interest and the care of the child that the child needs to be put in a hostel, or maybe there are situations where the mother feels no, the father should look after the child. On various other situations does the court take this view.
Right.
So we must not harbor this view that that they're going to take away my child.
Right.
No.
Right. I think this is fear mentality. It's just fear perception
that's right. But I personally feel that we have to break free of this fear now.
Right.
We have to do it so that the next coming generations don't have this fear in their mind. So we have to say that no, it's not going to happen.
Right. What about how does visitation rights and shared custody and all, very, very broadly, how do those things work?
So I think it does work very well. So visitation rights could be mutually agreed, and if there is no mutual agreement, then of course you can go to court on that, and court does reasonably look into the fact that where is the child staying, what is the which class they are studying, how much time can they go. Of course, in children who are older, they perhaps call the child in court and ask when would you like to go to the parent, what will be the visitation right. So it's very doable. Perhaps at times it's on the weekend. On an out of station parent, it could be after 3 months, where they have a longer period rather than just an overnight weekend. And that also depends upon the fact whether the father is staying alone or whether he's staying with the family and the child can stay with the grandparents. After all, why deny the child the love of the grandparents? So all this weighs on the court. Very difficult path to do, for the court also to decide, because again here the emotions of the child are involved. But visitation rights can work. Again, no formula exactly as to 2 days and 3 days or 5 days and 2 days like that. But of course, visitation rights as mutually agreed. And most of the times I see that parents mutually agree that, since the child is studying or the child has exams, so maybe after exams, the child can visit the father/mother.
Right.
Yeah.
We do have a comment about the recent Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.
So there is one point over here which I'd like to bring up, that judges are not qualified child psychologists to determine welfare. Is there any other basis on which they would take care of this decision? Would they consult psychologists? Would they consult?
So there have been situations where they would consult psychologists. They could or they would in case required. And I don't think so that it's quite entirely arbitrary. Perhaps just having a superficial view about the whole thing and just reading it by sending the child you may feel, well, why is the child sent away when he could stay with
Either parent.
either parents? But
Right.
perhaps this is a situation in which the court has weighed the situation, because I remember reading this judgment where they said that they have called the child, and they have come to a finding where the child perhaps wants to go.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
there
many
is something.
situations it does happen where the child wants to go. So to say that it's entirely arbitrary may not real, may be taking a little harsh
Sure.
view,
Right.
because I know the judges are extremely compassionate. In fact, in the High Court, on the criminal benches, on the other benches, I always see where the judges take time off from the court hours, where they
Right.
call the parents in the chamber, the child is called in the chamber, made comfortable, spoken to,
So it's not
and
an
then
on-the-spot
no,
impulsive
no, no,
decision
not at
taken.
all. Where they speak to the child, they spend time with the child, and they try to perceive, and they see, that what would be the care. And there are so many times the children perhaps want to go.
Correct. They will express whatever they are
Yeah,
feeling. They will.
that's
Children are
right.
open
And
enough.
they feel that perhaps care would be better that if he was in the hostel or she was in the hostel
Rather
rather
than with
than
either
staying.
parent.
Yeah.
Right. Rashmi, we've talked about various aspects of custody, of child support, alimony as well. Now, going back a few steps, if there is a woman who's reached this decision of divorce, which obviously will come after a lot of weighing, a lot of thinking, step one, what should she be doing?
Yeah, so I think that before she actually decides that she wants to terminate the marriage, I think she needs to first understand which ground would she be going on.
Right.
So under the Hindu Marriage Act as well as the Special Marriage Act and the other acts, there are specific grounds which are provided. And in this world of internet, we really may not need a lawyer to tell you exactly what are the grounds of divorce under the act. We can always look at it in the internet. And we need to have evidences specifically to the ground of cruelty or the various other specific grounds which are provided in section 13 of the Hindu Marriage Act or section 27 of the Special Marriage Act, which provides that these are the grounds on which we can go for a divorce proceedings. And we have to make it sure that we have evidence. There are a lot of cases, in fact, in fact, there are most of the cases where women really don't have any evidence, because they say, oh, I was mistreated or I was beaten, but you really don't have any evidence for the fact that your husband has been cruel or vice versa, has been cruel to you. But with this age today, when we are on electronic media, even and there are so many other instances by secondary evidence, you can prove the fact that you have been suffering, and it is a good ground to go for divorce. So that is the preparation.
So
Now,
when you say the evidence is, you can even submit an email,
yes,
saying
right, a WhatsApp,
a
an
WhatsApp,
SMS,
WhatsApp
and
messages,
an SMS.
SMS.
Yeah, so you can do that now.
Right.
So that is the preparation, so as to do
Yeah.
say that once you really actually decide that you would not be able to continue with the marriage
Right.
anymore. Now, what is the procedure? So there are two ways. You can either file a petition in the court, and for which, of course, you may need a lawyer because of the format, and you could do it also on yourself, but people do prefer to go by a lawyer because they would know the nuances of how to file and what to do. And then now we have this the mediation centers which have been opened by the court, which is called, referred to as the samadhan, which is the alternate dispute resolution. So anybody who endeavors to want to go for a divorce can always file an application for a pre-litigation mediation. Like, let's take this example, it's there even in the district courts, but let's take this example of the Delhi High Court has a samadhan center where anybody who wants a divorce can file an application.
A single partner can also
A single
file.
partner, yes. And
Okay.
the good thing is that you can do it even without a counsel. You can,
Right.
there is an application, you can file an application, you can deposit a little bit of fees, which is mandatory, which is there because of the remuneration to the mediators. Specific mediators who have been actually trained on this aspect specifically
Okay.
are appointed.
I see.
A request letter is sent to the spouse, and normally it is seen that people do respond, they come, and there is an amicable resolution to the whole situation. And the best thing is that in case the other party does not respond and come,
Right.
because the court can't, because the mediation center can't enforce attendance,
Right.
your entire fees, whatever you deposit, is refunded back to you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Is refunded. So it's um, it's not time consuming. It
Yeah.
is inexpensive. You decide. Mediators only help you to decide, And I think it's a very good suggestion, because I think most of us are not aware about the fact that there are these mediation
Mediation
centers,
centers,
and you
right.
can invoke them. And this goes for all. It's not alone for divorce, it's for restitution of conjugal rights, judicial separation, it is for alimony, it is for child custody, it's for visitation. You can invoke any
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 case.
issue.
Right. In fact, I think this is precisely the same context in which we've got a couple of comments already.
Yeah.
Gurpreet says, I've been separated for a long time now, almost 16 years. I continued living in my marital home, but he left after a year of marriage until I was chucked out 10 years ago. It is a case of bigamy, but I'm unable to prove. He belongs to a rich family. He had filed for divorce about 9 years ago, but the case was dismissed on the ground that he never appeared. I've been on my own ever since the last 10 years. Now I'm 46, have health issues, no kids. Can I, after all these years, file for maintenance? What should I do? This would be in retrospect basis, and he's married the other woman in another country. And is there any way she can get his marriage certificate from that country? So basically, it's
So I don't know whether she can get her marriage certificate from the other
other
country,
country.
because we really would not be able to do it from
Right.
there, and whether we can prove it. But if she has photographs about the fact that he's married and he's staying with this, and of course we have these various social medias by which we
Right.
can prove the fact that he's married, and if the institution of marriage, and if there is no formal divorce, for sure she can take proceedings in court.
So, and she can even claim some kind of maintenance or
Yes,
some
of
kind of
course.
thing.
But then she first has to file a complaint for bigamy,
Right.
okay, and file for divorce and prove it. And of course,
Prove
things
it.
can happen.
I think there is another question that we had got in the anonymous support groups was pretty much along the same lines, but except that it was very new. The wife complained that shortly after she gave birth to their baby, and she was in her mother's house, and she stayed there for a few months, and the husband refused to let her come back home. And instead, I think after about 6 or 7 months, he's even filed for divorce. So she says she's willing to reconcile, and she wants to reconcile, in fact. So she was also very lost. So do the mediation centers, would they be able to help in a case
Parul,
like this?
since the matter is already in court, so
Oh,
if
okay.
the matter is in court,
I see.
then she can always request the judge when she appears that I want to stay with him, and please refer the matter to mediation. Perhaps,
see.
in fact, in all cases, perhaps the court is also going to refer the matter to
Okay.
mediation themselves, because
Right.
there is a specific section which provides that the court will attempt to mediate between them.
Right,
So
right.
she can, and of course, in India we don't have a irretrievable breakdown of a marriage.
Right,
So if she
right.
doesn't want to break the marriage, she can only say that I don't want to break the marriage.
And you'd also mentioned something that while the case is in pendency, as you called
That's
it,
right.
there is a provision for legal fees to be paid by
Yeah,
the
Section 24 of the Hindu Marriage Act says that maintenance as well as the fees for legal expenses has to be borne by the spouse.
By the
So you can
spouse
file
who
an
is filing.
application. Yeah, so you can
Okay.
file an application. Of course, again, the court has to weigh the whole situation and award the amount, which will be again same as alimony and as maintenance as to the amount which is there.
Right.
But you can file for a Section 24 or a Section 125 of the CRPC. Yes,
which provides for
same.
this.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Pooja has a question. She says, my husband with whom I separated 1.6 years ago has refused to pay for child maintenance or even school fees. We want to go for mutual divorce. I just wanted to know if legally I could make him pay for our child. He has not shown any interest in even meeting her every week.
So
if
legally you can. You
You
just
can.
need to file. Okay, you can, but depends upon the fact that whether he will be able to prove that he's employed and there is a income, because he may say that he doesn't have, but of course you can.
you can. All
Yes,
right,
of
yeah.
course.
So Brinda has a similar question. My husband isn't paying interim maintenance, has not been attending court for over 1.5 years now, abandoned my 4.8 years daughter and me, doesn't even to pay alimony. He stays in Gujarat, I live in Mumbai. Judge has issued arrest warrant, but the two state rules and protocols are different. It's turning out to be expensive affair on me. How do I go about?
Yeah, I understand, but he has issued warrants again and he will appear.
So if
So
there
the
is an
matter is
arrest
sub
warrant
judice, yeah, and there is an arrest warrant and things will happen. I understand when it goes to the other state, there are
Right.
some technicalities and some approvals which need to be taken, but I think she's on track.
So just wait and
Yeah,
watch.
just wait, you're on track.
Okay. When you mentioned that, gathering evidence for something like infidelity
Yeah.
or cruelty,
Yeah.
so obviously the onus of that lies on the woman. I mean, on the person who's
On the person
filing
who's
for,
alleging
yeah, I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah, that's
alleging
right.
it, right? All those
Yeah.
accusations. But you also mentioned that a lot of that can be done now so much easily with digital media and
Yeah,
stuff
that's
like of
right. Yeah.
that. I just wanted to repeat that point because
So do
we,
you, so I just want to also repeat, WhatsApp, SMS messages, um, electronic media, otherwise social media,
social media,
all these
okay.
things can help prove a case,
Right.
and that all these things can happen. So we can collect. In fact, today
Right.
I feel it's so much more easier to collect evidence,
Right.
okay, or substantiate an allegation which is there.
Right. So again, that fear of nobody will believe me should go away.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Rachna's question is about time. That is it true that the court doesn't grant divorce for at least a year after filing and tries to reconcile? Is that a year or 6 months or what is
Six
it?
months
Six
after
months.
filing on mutual.
Right.
Yeah.
So the court
So
will ask you to try and
so for
reconcile.
mutual, 1 year is the period for filing after marriage, or after saying separately. 1 year is the time to file for mutual.
After 1 year of marriage, that
Yeah,
is.
that's right.
Okay.
After 1 year of marriage or 1 year of staying separately, one
Ah,
year is
okay.
the mandatory
Okay.
period. I guess again it's in consonance with our whole social system, where they say that you've been staying separately and now for sure you don't want to
Right.
live, and
Right.
then you have a 6 months cooling off period between the
Right.
second motion. So in mutual consent there is a first motion, and after 6 months there is a second motion by which you say that you agree that you don't want to stay with each other, and you
Okay.
mutually decide to dissolve the
Dissolve the
marriage.
marriage.
So
Okay.
that 6 months period is there, which now recently Supreme Court has held that in exceptional cases and cases which are deserving, that 6 months period is not mandatory; it's only directory.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So that
for
can
exception,
also be waived off
waived off
for
or
cases where,
reduced.
yeah, can be reduced. Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, does mutual consent really go through as easy as it sounds?
So if both parties are willing, I think it is very easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you reach that place
Yeah.
where both of you have agreed, again, mutual consent, and you put things together, it can be done easily. What is the
Yeah.
minimum time that it would take in that case?
6 months.
6 months, as you said.
6 months,
Six
and in
months.
deserving cases,
Right.
less than 6 months.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to take up a question that has come from Gagandeep. My father-in-law ejected my husband from property rights just a week before sending the divorce papers. Will this be considered in the course? All this was planned by my in-laws' family.
Yeah, it will be considered. And what do you mean by ejection? So, as I understand, when I read the question, is
Right.
that he inherently had a right and they passed and they maybe
Before-
made a will, or they disentitled him from his inheritance or his rights. Yes, of
So-
course. Of course, it can weigh in the mind of the courts. You only have to file a petition or an application saying that this has been only done so
a
that
week before.
yeah, a week before, definitely they will take up notice
Right.
of this.
So, I mean, this has obviously been done so that she is not entitled
Yeah,
to
that's
anything.
exactly. And we hear it of in most cases where
yeah.
they say that, okay, it's fine, what can you take from me since I don't have anything? And
Huh.
whatever belongs to my father, well, he's disinherited me. Okay, so either and which can only take place by a simple affidavit or a public notice by
Right.
saying, I disentitle my son from anything because I don't want him to be there, and that's it. So, but all these things will weigh in court's mind. So definitely you can move an application. You can show this, and you can definitely say that it has only been done for the fact that they want to deny me my legitimate rights.
Right. We have any more questions? I'm just checking on
So
that.
last question, I want to just Sheetal's
Sheetal's,
question.
yes.
Yeah, Sheetal, definitely. That's yes.
So
A
can
man
I-
can also fight for divorce on the
Yeah,
grounds of cruelty.
right.
Yeah.
In fact, I have noticed that Rashmi's been very, very equal in terms of, is mentioning partner and spouse
Yeah,
and the
that's
person
right,
and
yeah.
gender. I mean, it could go both ways, right? I
Yes,
mean,
of
it is
course,
like
of
men and
course.
women are
Yeah.
both equally liable.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. On the whole, Rashmi, we've noticed that people say कि कौन पढ़ेगा ये कोर्ट कचहरी के चक्कर में. They're cynical about lawyers. They're basically apprehensive about the jhanjat of going, the time taken, the expenses and all that. from your end, what kind of reassurance can you give people on this aspect? Again, I know it's too much to ask one person to do that, on behalf of the entire legal system. But given that people have faced so much harassment around legalities, how can this be made easy?
So, I think, I really can understand where this is coming from, where the perception is that there is a lot of pendency, things take a lot of time, lawyers are very expensive, people they may not guide you. And in fact, often, which makes me smile is when a litigant actually comes and says, ki, my lawyer's not behaving right because he's gone on the other side,
Right.
yeah, so because he's saying what my husband is saying, so I don't think so he's very genuine. Again, most of it may be right, some of it may be just perception.
Right.
So for every other lawyer who may charge more or who may prolong, there are others, who would be there. So I really don't think
We
so.
can't generalize, is
Yeah,
what
we
you're
really can't generalize. Again, it's a perception which we perpetuate because of our own experiences. We either our own experience or the experience of somebody who's been close to us, and we really shouldn't generalize.
Yeah.
And again, um, would it be court kacheri ka jhanjat as compared to be staying in a relationship with is either abusive or you don't want to continue with it? I mean, after all, we really need to weigh down and see what things are. And
Right.
now courts are so perceptive. I see litigants appearing in their own matters. I see mothers, fathers appearing in child visitation matters and, telling the court, and courts being very perceptive
Right.
and very liberal to hearing and understanding and trying to make an equitable distance a decision. I'm sorry. So I really don't think so. We should generally, in fact, we should break through this myth, कि
Yeah.
झंझट है.
Jhanjat, yes.
Of course it takes time. It may take time. I mean, after all, you may not be the only one who may be a litigant. There are many people who are there, things are there, and courts are working overtime. But it's not really, wouldn't say it's a jhanjat anymore, or it ever was.
So, like you said, it's people's perceptions,
Yeah.
people's own old history, somebody else's stories. The minute you're
Experience.
told
A
कि हमारे
perception.
साथ
It's a
हमारे साथ
perception.
ऐसे हुआ था, so then
Yeah.
you start building up the same ideas in your mind.
Like by
But-
alternate dispute resolution, there is such a lot of success rate
Right.
that it is so good. Again, there is no awareness. Once we understand and we know that there is an alternate dispute resolution, we sure can go. It's you are not with a lawyer. You can be deciding it on your own. There are mediators who help you, who advise you, who guide you. So,
Right.
so you only need to decide.
Right. On the question of desertion, we have another one that has come from Shalini. She says, my husband has deserted me 13 years ago, not giving any maintenance, staying with some female who says she's adopted a daughter. But my husband he's putting, oh well, okay, social media comes here.
Yeah.
Profile picture stating he's the father on Facebook. Can I go in case of bigamy again?
Yes.
So, because
can.
you've got evidence there.
Yeah.
So
you
there
can.
you go.
Of
Right.
course. And you're
Sheetal-
still legally married.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so definitely you can.
Right. So here again, does one go to the mediation center
So,
or do you
for a bigamy, you need to file a complaint to the police station.
Police
it's a
station,
criminal.
I see.
So,
Okay.
you can file for a complaint for bigamy and then go for, then you can go to court for whatever, maintenance, divorce on that ground. You can. But she only has to file a complaint and
a complaint,
yeah.
a police complaint?
Yeah,
to
that's
start
right. Please
with.
do it.
Right. Yeah, actually, when
Yeah.
she's got the evidence right there. Sheetal, coming back to Sheetal's story, she says, I'm divorced, my daughters get their maintenance, it's peanuts. Can they ask for more maintenance when they're adults? Is that possible? Does that
So,
work?
if they are not working and they are not being able
Acha.
to support themselves, then definitely they can ask for more maintenance because the courts always can vary and can change and can alter so as to say
Right.
the maintenance which is given. But provided, you prove the fact that, his source of income or the father's source of income
Has
has
increased.
increased
I see.
and there is a lifestyle which is different. So
Right.
all those things will go
Can be
for
taken
that.
into
Yeah.
consideration. Okay.
Yeah, but definitely you can
Right.
alter or ask or request for an alteration of the maintenance which is given to you.
In fact, Anita's question is almost along the same lines. Daughter who's above 18 years also is she not entitled for education expenses, monthly expenses? So 18, you're an adult.
Yes.
So, as an adult child, are you entitled to
So you
maintenance?
are entitled to maintenance, but I don't know whether in this question was she getting maintenance earlier
Earlier,
or not, or was there
right,
a, I mean, I don't know whether there has been a settlement and what kind of a settlement was there
right,
earlier. So we have to look into all those aspects.
right. Well, I think there are a lot of questions that we have been able to resolve, and I think one piece of information which probably not people don't know about is this thing about the pre-mediation centers, the pre-litigation mediation
Mediation,
centers,
yeah,
right?
that's right.
And
Yeah.
you had another term for it,
Samadhan.
samadhan.
Yeah.
Okay,
In fact,
so
Parul, I actually feel people must do it because there is such a huge success rate, and
right,
that people, and here again it's in your hands. People are there only to guide you. So, and you must invoke so as to say or
right,
file an application. I mean, it's not even time consuming,
correct,
it's not expensive, and all this jhanjat and everything gets resolved by this.
absolutely, and
So I
all the
actually tell
fears.
everybody that they must invoke it.
So I'm just going to read out a couple of questions which had been coming in on the anonymous support groups, and thereby people who are quite troubled because they don't know what to do. And I think a lot of that can be probably resolved by first approaching the mediation
That's it.
centers. So we've also got a question about mutual consent. Um, there is what happens when you have what all do you need to take into consideration when you're going in for a mutual consent divorce in terms of what all do you need to resolve, right down to everything about the custody of the child as well?
So, definitely when we are going for a mutual, it's better to resolve all issues.
Right.
Okay? So, all issues which will be a bother between us or between the parties, so as to say, I think should be put down because it's an agreement. Mutual consent means actually the entire basis of a mutual consent means both of us mutually agree. So
Right.
it is better to write down everything, and normally it encompasses all. So
Okay.
normally it encompasses the child, the Sridhan, the alimony, everything is resolved between the parties mutually, and then it is penned down and put up in court.
Okay, all right. Here's another anonymous question. This lady's received a legal notice from her husband to come back home. He has made false allegations. She says that she had left the house because she was fighting, but after that, he did not allow me to come back for 7 months. Please guide me. What should I do? I want to reconcile. So again, I think we did bring up something very similar
That's right,
earlier
yeah.
on. So again, this is something which can be
So I think she
considered
should file a restitution of
restitution.
conjugal rights under
Yes,
Section 9 and say that she wants to live with him,
right.
and the court will send a notice. And I think she should say that she wants to still be there. And I think Section 9 petition is a good idea,
Section 9 petition is
which is the
the
restitution of
restitution
conjugal
of conjugal
rights.
rights. Okay. Um, we were talking about influences. Gagan's question is if a magistrate can influence another magistrate to speak in my husband's favor, as he is having a friend who is guiding him all the way, giving him assurances. That's one of those fears that people have, that, that person is so well connected that, he will influence another magistrate to give orders in their favor and everything. I don't expect you to be able to comment on
Yeah, so
this,
Gagan,
but
I think that mostly, not mostly, in fact, in all times, the magistrates decide in accordance with law. And if there is anything missing in the order, which has been either the fact that your viewpoint has not been taken note of, then
right,
there is always an appeal which is there. And I really don't think so that one magistrate thinking or suggesting to another magistrate to act at the behest of one litigant over the other is really going to be a factor, because frankly all of them will decide in accordance with law. And then we have the appellate mechanism which is there in case you feel aggrieved of the fact that a point of yours has not been taken note of or has
right.
been missed, then it's always there. So really, I mean, that kind of a question I really wouldn't know, but I think that they can't decide it in any way other than in accordance with law.
With the law. All
Yeah.
right. In fact, Justin has brought up a similar kind of a question where he
Yeah.
talks about exaggerated false cases involving senior citizens, even children, making a conflict that would have probably been resolved amicably extremely bitter, dragging court proceedings for years, no accountability. So a lot of this has happened. We
Yeah,
do know
that's
of
right.
that.
So I agree where this is coming from. And Justin, I do believe that there are often matters which are, or cases which are, or allegations which are false, exaggerated, only
Right.
to kind of show or tell the court that, I am the party who's been aggrieved and
Aggrieved,
all this has
yes.
happened. But really don't think that, all these ultimately make a difference, because I mean, the court who's reading it or who's deciding it really can judge that, what is happening. So it is an allegation which is made. Ultimately, what is proved is to be seen.
And I mean, if
And
there
what
are
is the court to
allegations,
decide? Yeah.
right. So, like you said, if there are allegations being made on you, then it's probably the onus is on us to then also create enough evidence that absolves us of those allegations. That
Yeah,
can
that's
also be
right.
done
And
from both
you
sides.
should always understand. So there is a petition which is filed, and the petition has some kind of false, exaggerated allegations, so as to say. And there is another party who's going to be defending it, and have faith in the court. The court is going to decide.
Right,
And the
exactly.
court is, I mean, doing this over and over, day after day, years after year. They can also know what will happen. So
Can
have
see the
faith.
difference, yeah.
Yeah, so have faith.
Well, you certainly have restored a lot of that faith
Yeah.
today, Rashmi. Thank you so much. It's been a very, very informative session, and I know our viewers would feel the same.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for
Yeah.
your time. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for watching.